Hello and welcome to Not Alone Today Chronological Bible Reading Plan by Anu and Joseph. Today we'll be reading Exodus 15 verse 22 up until chapter 18. This week we'll be using the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition. So quite a mouthful, NRSVUE. Oh, is it word for word or thought for thoughts?
It's more word for word, more like literal.
Okay. Yeah. So this translation is more literal, like the King James? Ish.
But with normal English, not
Dao. It's simple English.
Yeah.
So it should be an interesting read.
Exodus chapter 15 from verse 22. Then Moses ordered Israel out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. That is why it was called Marah. And the people complained against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" He cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet.
Then the Lord made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he put them to the test. He said, "If you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give heed to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases I brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you."
Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the water.
Chapter 16. The whole congregation of the Israelites set out from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. The whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, where we sat by the pots of meat and ate our fill of bread. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill the whole assembly with hunger."
Then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instruction or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord has heard the complaining that you utter against him, what are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord."
Then Moses said to Aaron, "Say to the whole congregation of the Israelites, draw near to the Lord, for he has heard your complaining." And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked towards the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the clouds. The Lord spoke to Moses, "I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God."
In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine flaky substance, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much of it as each of you needs, an omer per person, according to the number of persons, all providing for those in their own tents." The Israelites did so, some gathering more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, those who gathered much had nothing over, and those who gathered little had no shortage, and they gathered as much as each of them needed. And Moses said to them, Let no one leave any of it over until morning. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it until morning, and it became wormy and rotten. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, as much as each needed. But when the sun grew hot, it melted.
On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much food, 2 omers apiece. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until morning." So they put it aside until morning, just as Moses commanded them, and it did not rot, and there were no maggots in it. Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6th day you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none."
On the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, and they found none. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you food for 2 days. Each of you stay where you are. Do not leave your place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day.
The Israelites called it manna. It was like a white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, in order that they may see the food with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations." Just as the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the covenant for safekeeping. The Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came to a habitable land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah.
Chapter 17. From the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do for these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massa and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
Then the Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some men for us and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, and whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on either side, so his hands were steady until the sun set. And Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with a sword.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this as a remembrance in a book, and recite it in the hearing of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." And Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, A hand upon the banner of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation.
Chapter 18. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and his people Israel, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away his wife Zipporah, his father-in-law Jethro took her back, along with her 2 sons. The name of the one was Gershom, for he had said, I have been an alien in a foreign land. And the name of the other was Eliezer, for he had said, the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, along with Moses' sons and wife, came into the wilderness where Moses was encamped at the mountain of God. He sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed down and kissed him. Each asked after the other's welfare, and they went into the tent. Then Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardship they had found on their way, and how the Lord had delivered them. Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel in delivering them from the Egyptians.
Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord who has delivered you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because he delivered the people from the Egyptians when they dealt arrogantly with them. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God.
The next day, Moses sat as judge for the people, while the people stood around him from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, What is this you're doing for the people? Why did you sit alone while all the people stand around you from morning until evening? Moses said to his father-in-law, Because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make known to them the statutes and instructions of God. Moses' father-in-law said to him, What you're doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people with you, for the task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now, listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. You should represent the people before God and bring their cases to God. Teach them the statutes and instructions, and make known to them the way they ought to go and the things they ought to do. You should also look for able men among the people, men who fear God, are trustworthy, and hate dishonest gain. Set them as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Let them sit as judges for the people at all times. Let them bring every important case to you, but decide every minor case themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their homes in peace.
So Moses listened to his father-in-law and did all that he had said. Moses chose able men from all Israel and appointed them as heads over the people, as officers over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. And they judged the people at all times. Hard cases they brought to Moses, but any minor case they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went off to his own country. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Yes, we are making progress as we journey on and on. Now we are, the Israelites have obviously crossed the Red Sea. They are begun their journey in the wilderness. But now we begin to see this cycle of they are in need, they cry out, they complain. And so in the concluding part of chapter 15, we see them complain about water when they were at Marah, and the Lord gave a solution that turned the bitter water sweet. Then in chapter 16, we are introduced to this daily meal that the Lord began to feed them. called manna eventually, a word that in Hebrew is more or less meaning what manner of thing is this, like what's this, and that's how they gave it its name. And then we come to chapter 17, where again they are thirsty and they cried out for water from the rock at Rephidim. The Lord gave them a solution to that. Moses struck the rock, water came out. Then we also learned about the war with the Amalekites and how that war played out. Then chapter 18, we are told that Jethro comes with his daughter, Moses' wife, and his grandsons, Moses' sons, to bring them back as a reunion with Moses. But in the process, there was an observation of Moses' hard work, and then he introduced the concept of delegation, and that's how that chapter ended. So that's what we've covered in today's reading. Any key standout points to you, Anne?
Yes, and the one that stood out to me in chapter 15, 22 to 27 is how that at that point in Mara,
Yeah.
God set an ordinance already for the Israelites. So already they had instructions to follow before. Obviously, we will see in Sinai, on Mount Sinai, when he gave them the actual instructions. And then what I saw was, I drew a parallel to, so they were tested, God tested them in Mara, put the ordinance to them that they should listen to him, do what is right. But then, after that, it brought them to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water.
Yeah.
And to me, it reads as though if they hadn't been in Mara and gone through not being able to drink water for 3 days and seen a bitter water which was turned to sweet, they might not really appreciate the springs that are available to them in Elim.
That's so true. And then, of course, in some sense, just piggybacking on what you said earlier about the test as well, it's almost like a test pass reward in the sense that the Elim is also coming after they've gone through the testings of the Lord in that sense. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Another thing that stood out to me, there is also this very popular verse about I am the Lord who heals you, which is coming in the context of, it says, when you do what is right, like you don't just claim that it's the Lord that heals, so heal me. It says, if you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord and you do what is right, you give it to his commandment, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases that I brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. And that strikes me as a double-edged sword, in the sense that if he's promising not to bring any of the diseases upon them, which he brought upon the Egyptians, it's almost like saying, I'm the Lord your immunity, or I'm the Lord your immunization. What is affecting others or what came upon others will not come upon you. But even if it does, I'm also the Lord who brings healing and respite and recovery. So they are covered on both sides in that beautiful promise. Yeah. Chapter 16, what stood out to you?
It's from verse 2 to 3, how that the whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron. But when they were in Mara, it was just the people that complained. So this complaint this time in chapter 16 must have been huge. The whole congregation, 600,000 men plus women and children. So it must have been really, really, I don't know. Moses and Aaron would have found it very...
They must have been overwhelmed.
Overwhelming, yeah.
That's interesting.
And what I found more interesting is this complaint, it's just that a few weeks after they had left Egypt.
Yeah.
And they said they preferred to have died in Egypt, sat by pots of meat. That's slavery mentality, isn't it?
Indeed.
It's like criminals who relapse, who reoffend. They don't reoffend because they really want to commit the crime, but they want to go to what's familiar,
which is the prison.
3-course meal in a day, being told what to do, rehabilitation course, people they know. Because out here, there's no job. Nobody wants to employ an offender. They're like a pariah. But in there, familiarity. So in a sense, a small garden becomes like Eden. Like things that shouldn't be becomes the norm just because of the reconstruction of our mentality. And it saddens me.
Indeed.
Honestly, yeah.
And what you just said also carries on even for very many of us, in the sense that our appetites get too satisfied too quickly. Like the things that we make a big deal out of are really nothing compared to what God wants us to make a big deal out of, which is himself. And the more we're able to train our senses to behold the glory of God in all of its gloriness, in all of its majesty, in all of the beauty thereof, the more we are able to enjoy a deeper satisfaction that can only be found in God and in God alone.
True. Then verse 13 stood out to me in chapter 16.
Yeah.
How that Moses already said what would be before God confirmed it. And it ties into what happened in chapter 15 when God said, is it 15? When God said, why are you asking me?
Yeah.
So now
14.
in chapter 14, so now he knows what to do. And God just confirmed it to him. And I felt like, yes, that was really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Then the principle of, now we see this again and again in history. We see this with nations gaining independence from colonial rule. Very many African countries that gained independence, especially around, Nigeria gained independence in the 60s. Many countries gained independence in the 60s. But many of them would also go on, when they start governing themselves, to have all sorts of issues that many of which are still ongoing till today. But these people are now coming to become a nation, in some sense being quote and unquote governed by God himself, but through Moses and Aaron. And they are God is beginning to set for them principles that we should also learn from. And one of the very primary things that was clear, even in the provisions of God, is the Sabbath law. That was still like very fundamental. That you don't work and do not take the rest that you need. Even in God providing for them, two things there. One is a daily provision. If you take excess, it gets spoiled. You are to trust him per day. But then also, you are also to acknowledge that there is a full day that should be fully devoted to him and nothing else. Like, it's your Sabbath day, it's your day of rest, it's your day of worship, it's your day of acknowledging God. And even in that seeming inactivity, you are still being provided for and enjoying God and all that he does for us. Yeah.
True. But in chapter 17, one last thought.
16 even.
Sorry, in chapter 16, one last thought is that the way God told them to only have the manna each day ties into the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Give us our daily bread.
Yeah.
And there's a part again in the New Testament that says that today's worry is enough for today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Yes. And it then ties into our anxiety, like the anxieties we go through in this present life. On our that we work so hard, not that we don't have enough for today, but in fear of what's coming tomorrow. There's always this fear driving our hard work.
Yeah.
But if you're asking him daily to give us our daily bread, just what's enough for today? Because it's a God who clothes the lilies with beauty.
Yeah.
And then strips it off. It's the God who makes shelter for both the wicked and the good. So if we it might be difficult to say that focus on today's needs. But I read a devotion. My devotion yesterday was on that. If we have too much, we might get too fat. If we have too little, we might be scared of being too thin. But we need to ask God to make us just as fat as we need for today. So we can burn the calories and the energy we need for today. And then tomorrow carries on. Because if we now look at it holistically, it's not just giving us our daily bread for today, but for the entirety of our lives.
Absolutely.
But if we trust him for today, then it's enough to make us, it will be enough to cater for tomorrow that we can't see. For tomorrow will take care of itself.
Absolutely. There's a proverb in the book of Proverbs that also carries that very essence. It's like a prayer that do not make me rich lest I forget you. Do not make me poor lest I dip my hand into iniquity. Just give me food that is sufficient or enough for me. So yeah, that's a brilliant principle to live by. Then we get to chapter 17 and we see them complaining yet again about water. And the Lord provides water from the rock, with Moses striking the rock. And that's significant because we're going to see another episode of water being needed. And Moses repeats what he does here, but instead of it being an act of obedience, it becomes, in God's estimation, an act of disrespect and disregard, because that wasn't the instruction. But we'll get there and talk about that then, I suppose. Yeah.
And what stood out to me in verse 17, in chapter 17, was from verse 8, the fight against the Amalek. And the most interesting part for me was how Aaron and Hur supported Moses silently. And it ties into what Kola said earlier from when we're reading chapter 16, on how that when the people complained against Moses, they were complaining against God. So sometimes we might see our leaders, let's just say spiritual leaders now, taking certain patterns that we're not comfortable with. And we might not even be sure that they're actually is in tune with God's will or plan. Because on this occasion for Moses, he hasn't said that God said, go to the mountain. He just went there. He must have had it from God, but there's no record of God saying to him to take that action. But he did. And these two people supported him. They saw that his hand was getting heavy and proactively chose to put a stone first for him to sit. And then held his hand from sunrise to sunset. And it's instructive to me and to us listeners as well, to say that it's not everything we need to question. Sometimes if we're led to just be supportive of our leaders, then be supportive. And if occasion comes where we can raise concerns, then we can. But what they did here was quite interesting and very instructive to me, to know when to keep quiet and when to speak.
Indeed. And it's a beautiful picture of teamwork in some sense, because Joshua and the men were doing the work on the ground,
the physical work,
whereas Aaron, Hur, Moses are equally doing, even though they might not be in the spotlight or in the action, they are equally doing significant work in the background. There is a proverb that the people of Chad Republic likes to say in the context of this. They would say that it's actually the people of Gabon. They would say the chimpanzee fights because it counts on the help of the gorilla. The chimpanzee is, compared to the gorilla in terms of size, is little, but the chimpanzee can go and do yes, I'm able to fight. I'm so confident, simply because he knows that the gorilla will come to his defense. In the Yoruba context, we have a similar proverb: Dada koleja, Shubola buro to gboju. Dada cannot fight, but he has a younger brother that is a notable warrior, and so he can go on to look for trouble because he's counting on the support of his brother. So in this case, it's not like Joshua and the men are super warriors, but they won because there are other, in fact, possibly a more significant help happening in the background in what Moses, Hur, and Aaron were doing out of sight.
And the last part that stood out to me was, this is since we started reading Genesis, the first time God will mention writing something in the book was verse 14 of chapter 17. Like they should write what's happened as a remembrance in the book and cite it. And then verse 15, Moses built an altar. Immediately I read that, I remembered how Jacob continually built altar almost every time at the end of a season or at the start. And Noah did the same, Abraham did the same. So it was quite good to know that he's still continuing. I don't know what I am with altars. But then he built it and called it "The Lord is my banner." And if you listeners remember, every time Jacob builds an altar, he always names it something.
Yeah.
And the name of that altar encapsulates everything that's happened to him for that season or an event that has happened.
Yeah.
So it's quite good to see that the tradition continued here.
Indeed. And there'll be many more altar buildings or memorials.
They call it memorials too.
As we're going to see in the unfolding story of the nation of Israel. Chapter 18 brings us to the reunion between Moses and his wife and his sons and his father-in-law. And that makes me wonder, so all along, what happened? Like, this is part of the challenges with, piecing together a timeline for the records we have in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and going forward. Because we've read earlier on that when Moses was going to Egypt to say to Pharaoh, let my people go, that was when he had this issue when God sought to kill him. And then, the wife circumcised the son and touched the foreskin with the leg. So I'm wondering, when did that happen? How did that happen? And when did Zipporah go back to Adad with the kids, such that everything that was happening, it was just Moses alone now, and now there is the need for a reunion between Jethro and Zipporah, and so I don't know how that fits into the rest of the story, but it's interesting to see that they came back together. That's very important. And the other thing, of course, is the very timeless lesson that Jethro teaches Moses here about delegation. I'm one of those people that feel like, if something needs to be done well, then I need to do it myself. But in reality, when you're working, especially in the context of a team, delegation is such a beautiful, beautiful thing to embrace and to practice, because then you are on the one hand developing other leaders, and on the other hand you are also getting the necessary preservation of your mental health, amongst other things. Productivity is increased, effectiveness is increased when good delegation is in place. And the way Jethro explained it, it couldn't have been so simpler. Very clear, very straightforward. I love it.
Yeah. And what stood out to me is in verse 9.
Okay.
When Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord has done to the Israelites,
Yes.
I thought to myself, he's a priest of the Midianites. Why is he rejoicing for what God has done?
We would even go on to say in his rejoicing, now I know that the Lord, capital Lord, which is Yahweh, is greater than all gods, because he delivered the people from the Egyptians when they dealt arrogantly with them, which presumably means he's saying the Lord is greater than even the gods for whom I am a priest.
So does that mean he got converted? Because after he said it, he made a declaration and then he offered sacrifices to God. Is that, and then he was allowed to eat bread in the presence of God.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. In the presence of God would, in my understanding, mean in the presence, the box, the Ark of the Covenant. I haven't seen so far in what we've read a clear instruction to build the Ark of the Covenant. But it seemed like there is something already at this point in the story representing the presence of God for them. Because we know that eventually when the Ark of the Covenant is constructed, 3 things are inside it. One is Moses' Aaron's rod that budded. We have not gotten to the story of Aaron's rod budding, but that rod will be in the Ark. The 10 Commandments, the stone tablets, were in the Ark, as well as a sample of manna, which we already saw Moses here being instructed by God to keep a sample, like keep a portion of it in a jar and place it in the presence of God continually. And so that was also going to be kept in the Ark. So I don't know whether the Ark is already a thing in this part of the story, but something was, and I don't know whether it's the version we are reading from, but something, go on.
In chapter 16, verse 34, I made a note that they said Aaron went to keep the manna in the covenant.
Yes.
So I was going to raise that to mean that as that's already been set aside for God.
Yes. Which exactly that's my question. So when it says in the covenant, is that the Ark of Covenant, as many other translations will put it? Or is there something that is at this point in the story serving the same purpose?
It reads as though there is something like a makeshift that they have already made a place for God.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of them coming out of Egypt is to worship Him.
Yeah.
So if God is saying, if the Bible recorded in chapter 16 verse 34 that Aaron went to put the manna in the covenant, then it reads as though there was something already on ground. Before then, God told them specifically what to build and how the ark should be. But what's more striking in this in chapter 17, chapter 18, what Jethro did was, it was as though he made a sacrifice to God. It was as though he stood as a priest.
Oh, okay.
That's how it reads. So it's verse 12, it's chapter 18, verse 12 said,
burnt offering, yeah.
And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law in the presence of God. So if we say he's a new convert, it's interesting that a new convert is leading old converts in a worship and sacrifice to God.
Yeah.
And it also reads to me like how God can use anybody.
Indeed.
You don't have to be this perfect theologian to know exactly what He's doing. If you believe and do what is well according to the ordinance He gave earlier, then you have a right, so to say, to participate in His worship.
Interesting. And it struck me as well that the word God in that episode of Jethro was in the capital L-O-R-D. It was just God, which would be Elohim, which could have been any God, actually.
No, that would be reading too much into that.
Possibly. But yeah, that just struck me.
Yeah, it's interesting that they didn't use L-O-R-D.
Yeah.
Because everything he's been saying from verse 10 to 11 was L-O-R-D, blessed be Yahweh.
Yeah.
I know Yahweh is greater than all gods.
Yeah.
But when it came to the sacrifices, it was written as God.
Yeah. This passage, as unclear as it is, again, buttresses what we've been saying somewhere in the background of this whole story. Because, as Christians, we can just think of the dealings of God with humans as though it is only through the Abrahamic connection that God has ever revealed Himself. But the reality is that God has revealed, He has always, the Bible says in the book of Hebrews, God who at sundry times revealed Himself through prophets and He has revealed Himself to various people groups in various ways. They've captured that understanding in different ways. But in these last days has revealed Himself through, of course, the person of Jesus. And that comes from this lineage of Abraham in that sense. So yeah, the God that Jethro is worshipping, in some sense, I believe, has a connection on. There must be, for him to be able to say, "Blessed be Yahweh," and I know that Yahweh is greater than all gods. There is an acknowledgement in his worldview that yes, the God of the Israelites, the God that has done all these things, is indeed deserving of worship. Is God over all gods, including the God that he worships. But whether it is that God that he worships that he sacrificed to, in verse 12, I don't know, or whether it is to Yahweh, but the word Yahweh was not categorically used. Yeah.
And regarding the matter of delegation, it's quite ripe in that verse.
Yeah.
In that chapter. And the reason sometimes that we don't want to delegate is because we want to control things.
Yeah.
We want to control the outcome. And that in itself is really tasking. There's no way it won't create an imbalance with life or work or family. It would eat into something. But when we choose to delegate, I'm reading it to be that we're trusting God more. We're saying that we're not the Messiah. We're not the Savior of all people or the work or the ministry, but God is. And to delegate also bringing people in.
Yeah.
It's maybe you like your things being done in colors, in grains and black, and the person you trained might want it done in gray tones. It doesn't affect the outcome.
That's right.
The point is, it is done. And I've learned that I also like making sure that I do it myself. But I've learned to appreciate other people's styles.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they use past tense or present tense or continuous. So far the message is there. So far the work is done. And in them doing it, in us releasing that control to another person to do it, means that person also gets to grow in that skill and learn, and then bring others in. But when we put all the work on our own heart, we were the one who wants to write the letters, we are the one that wants to do the dictation, we are the one that wants to send it out, it becomes too much. It means one person is doing the work 15 other people could do, and the 15 other people can get the glory and the praise. It doesn't really matter that we are always in the spotlight or the center of attention. Other people can also gain that spotlight, and we need to learn to release. I think I'm talking to my husband more. We need to learn to
And your husband is listening.
we just need to learn to release the work for others to do, and also be in the spotlight. It's not just about us.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful.
And one other thing that I thought that was interesting was, despite the fact that Jethro gave Moses this advice and Moses obeyed, he also departed. He went off to his own country, letting Moses be the leader of his own people. And that to me is good. It shows that, I don't know what it means, but it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. If he had stayed around, obviously it commands a lot of influence, as we could see. So much so that Moses and Aaron and all the leaders, as it were, came together to eat with him in the presence of God. Yeah, so it's good idea that you can't do proper delegation if there is still micromanagement. So it's good that he left. All right, we turned the page on day 23 to Exodus 19 and the very popular chapter Exodus 20, where we'll see the 10 Commandments. But till then, just remember, you are not alone
Today. God bless you.